Hello, A Taste of AZ podcast listeners. Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com. Let's get into the episode. Hello, A Taste of AZ listeners. We are here today at one of my favorite locations to visit, and I've been here a handful of times, and the first time was probably about 2 years ago when I really got to experience the property. Eric, we got a tour of the place talking with Jamie Hormel and Chef Christopher, but now we are back, and things have changed a lot. Today we also have a special guest host with us. But our guest, would you guys... Yeah, Christina Barrueta, thanks for joining us. But our guest today, would you guys introduce yourself and where we are?
Perfect. All right, so I'm Jason Caballero. I'm the CEO wine director here at Wrigley Mansion. And yeah, there you go.
I'm David Brito. I'm the executive chef of Wrigley Mansion.
And could you guys give us a little bit of a quick synopsis of what exactly the Wrigley Mansion is for someone who's never been?
Oh boy. So yeah, there's a lot of facets that go into it. First and foremost, we're a restaurant or a collection of restaurants. So we have Christopher's, we have Jordy's, we have Jamie's Wine Bar that's here, and then we have an event venue. So we kind of handle all facets of that.
And Christopher's just won an award, right?
Yeah, he did.
Foodist
he did.
award.
Just got Foodist for excellent culinary journey.
Nice.
So congratulations to him.
Yeah.
And the property itself is quite incredible. We're perched up on a hill. I'm not sure if there's a name for this hill specifically.
Wrigley Hill?
Yeah, something like that. Right?
There's a lot of creative names we've given it over the couple months I've been here. But.
Well, and one of the reasons I love it so much is no matter what time of the day you're here, the views are incredible from just around the property. Wherever you go, you basically have a beautiful view. But then when you come in, it has the refreshed feeling that they've put a lot of work into this place, but it also maintains, of course, the historical significance of this property. I imagine it's over 100 years old at this point.
It's getting there. 1931 it was built, so
okay.
we're close. So.
Yeah, so whatever that is, I'm going to guess 89 years or something like that. But yeah, so you both joined the team relatively recently. We'll start with you, Jason. Give us a little bit of your background and then kind of bring that into your joining of the team here.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm sommelier by trade. Kind of got my chops at Olive and Ivy many moons ago. This was 2005-ish. Worked around, was interested in wine, shelved it for a little bit, got interested again, worked at Vintage 95. From there, I progressed to Bourbon Steak, ran that program. And then I was brought on for Maple and Ash, to really, to do the wine program there and kind of help with the culture and how people dine and everything, which was fantastic. And Jamie had been asking, for a little while about, hey, come on over. We'd love to have you, this and that. And I was like, I'm okay. And then one day I was like, you know what? I will take that cup of coffee. I will talk with you. I will do whatever else. And then, came here. I started, August 1st. And then I was put in CEO November 1st.
Okay.
So it's been pretty rapid. So.
Well, and I can't think of a better place for you to kind of show off what you've learned over all the years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. It's I take a pretty fearless approach. I think failure is just a stepping stone to success, which is really good. So we try a lot of really crazy things, and some things work, and some things really don't. But in my opinion, there's no better way to rise above and really be able to elevate everything unless you're willing to try everything.
Well, and one of those fearless steps, maybe you wouldn't consider this one of them, but to me it sounds pretty exciting, is by the time this podcast will come out, it would probably already pass, but you have an upcoming, like a $5,000 couples dinner, a Louis XIII dinner?
Yeah. So we have Louis Trey, we have Guillaume Valet who's coming out for it. Christopher's putting a menu together. We're doing some pairings for it, and it's $5,000 a couple. They get their own bottle of Louis with it, etched and everything else, and a whole dinner, the whole experience. So it's it was a pretty big leap to take, and we're pretty close to being sold out. So it's been pretty good to get people in for that. So. Well,
and that I should say that, and also mention, that not everything that you do here is $5,000 a couple. You have your upcoming, is it Festivus? Is that what it's called?
Festivon. So Festivon, a play on Fest du Vin.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the other things that you have going on for that event.
Perfect. So there's a couple dinners that we have lined up. We have a Dom Perignon dinner that we're doing. We're going back all the way to 95 and everything kind of in between. Brito's got a really exciting menu for that, which is cool. We're doing, these are the high-end dinners that I have. We also have a decades dinner we're doing. I'd never really heard of the concept before, and Kara that works here suggested it.
Yeah, that one sounded really intriguing.
Yeah, right? So, and it worked out really good. I know David had a good time with it because we're like, hey, study food from the 40s and on and everything. And, what was there? Some baked Alaska or something?
Yeah, baked Alaska, escargot pot pie, taking riffs on old, like, duck a la presse. So
I can see why that must be really fun for you to kind of delve
fun,
into
but
that.
fun, for sure.
Yeah, his food's pretty progressive and delicious. So we have that dinner. So we're essentially taking a riff on something from one of those decades, and then pairing a wine from that decade with it. So you're getting like the full experience of what it could have been like when your grandparents went out, when your parents went out, when just kind of the whole take on it. Highlighting on Mare who taught Bocuse, and then the Rainbow Room and everything that came. So kind of having a look at all these these great benchmarks in dining throughout the decades, and try to honor that in a dinner. We also have Grace Under Pressure. That's Christine Mersnick. She brings in all Special Club, all Farmer Fizz, which is really cool. She's got very small visibility in the market, so this is kind of a launch for her. And then also she has about 11 or 12 just Special Club producers. There's only 29. I think it's 29 now. 28, 29, somewhere there, producers only in that. So she's bringing a big cornerstone of that here, which is nice. We have a dinner where we're highlighting her wines. And everyone always says champagne dinner, and you're like, great, I'm getting bubbles the whole time. How boring, right? So this is still wines from Champagne. This is fortified wines from Champagne. This is also sparkling wines. So it's everything Champagne encompassed. And David put a good menu together for that also. And then we have finally John and Jane Lopes. They were on Lifetime Uncorked. John's in Master Sommelier. Jane has passed the Master Sommelier exam. She got caught in a little bit of the shenanigans of the scandal and everything. And she's kind of taken a mode of solidarity, but she has passed the exam, and she's brilliant. So we're pairing them. They're married also. So we're pairing them together in kind of a Somm showdown. We call it Flight Club. And David put a menu together, and they're going to go at it. And there's been, I don't know if I can curse, there's been a lot of shit talking already. Which is sure can. So
They're ready to battle is what you're saying.
So I'm telling them, like, hey, save that for that night. We want all the drama. So they're going to come, and they're going to do a Flight Club also in that. And then we have the Grant tasting afterwards. So trying a bunch of different things. David's got some exciting, tables and everything. I've been talking. You have anything to add to all this?
No, it's good. You're summing it up really well.
Perfect.
Well, yeah, so, you've referenced multiple times now how big a part of everything going on Chef is. Chef, you're a new addition here. Would you give us a little bit of your background and kind of how you ended up here?
Sure. Yeah. I started cooking really young. So right out of high school, I went straight into culinary school at ACI. After that, I worked for Alex Strada when he came back from Las Vegas. So I worked with him at Prado. I was there with him
Shout
for
out to Alex. We're all big fans.
Great guy.
He's a stud.
Love him. For about 2 years, then I moved on to Andaz, Weft, and Warp. I was there for a bit, went back with Alex. Then I progressed on to Kai. Learned a lot of fine dining techniques, so I love that. And moved on, and we opened up Reserve in 2020, peak COVID, which was pretty fun.
Which I think is the last place I saw you was at Reserve.
Yeah, Reserve, yeah. So 10-course tasting menu, super, high-end, exclusive, like ingredients, truffles, caviar, the whole nine. And I think, when I was looking forward to moving on to something else, I think me and Jason kind of talked a little bit. They came in for a holiday party, and I think that kind of planted the seed. And then, he kind of reached out, and here we are.
Well, and probably every news release I've seen with your name in it for the past month and a half has referenced how young you are.
Yeah.
It's no secret at this point. But how did you go, how did you get so deep into kind of an exclusive field of cooking at such a young age?
I just think like Alex Strada was probably the main culprit of that. I mean, 2 Michelin stars. He was Mary Lane. So and he was very young. I think he was like 25 when he got 5-5 here in Phoenix. So that mentality, I think, it instilled in me. And Kai for sure showed me a lot of different techniques and strive for excellence. So for sure that stuck with me.
And was it just kind of a position that you found yourself in, or from the beginning was that the type of cooking you wanted to be doing?
Yeah, I think when you're in cooking, you want to be the best at it. Whether it's doing a burger, whether you're doing a caviar course, you want to do the best that you could possibly do. So if I'm going to do a burger, I want to do the best possible burger. So either or, you go into fine dining, and it's like that's where some of the best ideas. Whether it's like Thomas Keller or chefs like that. So I've always looked up to chefs.
What is the best possible burger? What is the
Something
perfect
with truffles
combination?
and foie gras. Yeah, probably.
Check.
The Whopper. Okay.
Yeah, a good foie burger. Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like your plates are always so artistic. Have
Yeah.
you always been like that since
Yeah,
you
visually, I think
started?
you eat with your eyes. You know, something that's Instagrammable, I think helps whether you're in a restaurant or an event setting. So for sure, you eat with your eyes first, and then, you know, purees and stuff like that. You can kind of play around with it. And we use Chef's Garden, so we have a lot of beautiful little microgreens that do impart flavor. But yeah, it's important to me that it looks visually appealing first and foremost.
And so we've kind of covered the recent events that are going on here. But Jason, we'll circle back to you. Talk to me a little bit about the wine program here at Wrigley Mansion and what's special about it.
Got you. So, I mean, well, number one, I have a lot of space to buy wine, which always helps. And Jamie's been a big supporter of having something big like that, which is really nice. So, you know, when I came in, I mean, you know, there was fun things on the list. I'm not taking away from Powell or anything else. It was doing fun things. You know, it was really nice where it was. You know, the cellar was there, but it was, you know, the cellar wasn't functional as a piece to share with guests. And that was like one of the things right away. It's like the space is so beautiful. Why wouldn't it always be set up? Why wouldn't it always be ready to have people in there? And that was a big thing that I did. I got speakers installed in there. You know, we made sure to kind of clear all the boxes, make everything accessible, have candles up, make it look great, make it look sexy.
How often do people book the wine cellar?
So we do the chef's table out where, I mean, it's, you know, it's hit or miss. We're a couple times a week, you know.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that people are coming in, you know, and they get, it's really cool. So they get
That's fun.
whatever whim David has, you know, for that menu. It's something completely off the cuff, something he wants to try, something whatever else. They get to do that. They start in the cellar. They get canapes. We get to do champagne. You know, we're playing Anderson Paak. It's, you know, it should be like a fun experience. And that's probably one of the biggest things I think I've infused here is that wine's kind of a social weapon. And it's not accessible, and everyone loves to flex knowledge and flex everything else. And
I think that's your hallmark, too.
Right?
You're very dynamic, high energy. It's fun.
For sure.
Don't take wine so seriously, but I'm going to show you serious wines.
yeah, exactly.
That was a great way to put it, Christina.
That's great.
Yeah.
I gotta remember that one.
That was fantastic. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, but yeah, it's you know, it's fermented grape juice. It should be fun. It should, you know. Another thing I always say too is, you know, a bottle of wine is 25.36 ounces. It's meant to be shared. So knowledge should be the same way. The cellar should be the same way. Everything about wine should be very community driven. And I don't think there's a better beverage. Sorry, I know you're a beer guy, but I don't think there's a better beverage for sharing and bringing everyone together. You know, so it's, I don't know. So that was a big impetus for bringing really cool things on, making sure it's priced accessibly. I'm very lucky that David makes world-class food, so I can throw world-class wine at his pairings. I don't have to worry about it. Yeah. I've worked with some chefs before where, you know, it's like, oh my God, this wine's going to completely overshadow everything they're making. Okay, let's back it down. And I can be fearless to put things together. So he's very talented. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And the wine cellar isn't just your average wine cellar either, is it right? Could you give me a little bit of a background of what it's like down there? Because I've personally I've actually shot photos of you down there before. But for someone who has never been or seen photos, what's it like?
It's I mean, if I describe it, it's like a very cerebral but accessible like wine library almost. Like everything's kind of cordoned off to where it looks like it's, you know, kind of bookshelved and segmented and everything else through. So there's a lot of accessibility to be able to get around. I have a couple shelves to be able to showcase things, but I think if I had to nail it, it'd be like that. Like I think the mansion in general is very big on discovery, and the cellar is very good with that. Because
And I feel like it's more intimate than some of the big grand wine cellars.
Well, I mean, for one,
it's still grand.
It is,
but it's cozier and
it's definitely one of the biggest. We had 50 people one time go down.
Wow.
There, so it was a group that was up, and one person wanted to see it, and then another person. And before we know it, I was like, oh my God, I hope the beams hold everything. So everyone's in there drinking Montenegro and, you know, yelling really loud at Ice Cube.
how did we miss that party?
Yeah, right.
You're
I'm
always
gonna invite you next time. And you don't just have wines down there either, right? It's been a while since I've been down there, but
Sure. We have, you know, cognac, Armagnac. We have some cool apricot brandy that Rouleau makes. We had some really high-end tequila till the group saw it, and they bought us out of it.
I thought Jason was going to say till me and David drank it.
they were the group that bought it out.
That's true.
Well, there's a reason David doesn't have a key. So there's a little bit of everything. A lot of fortified, which is still in the wine category, but we have a good extensive list of Madeira and everything. So it's try to hit a little bit of everything, so which is fun. It's not just that. Next one's probably sake. We'll start bringing in because it's
Ooh,
so
nice.
fun for pairings. So that'll be the next one kind of going.
So beyond wine, I know that you said wine is your favorite, or at least you think it's the best beverage for pairing and enjoying with people. Are you a big fan of other spirits and beverages?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sommelier. I love everything, anything alcoholic, which doesn't make me sound great, but that's okay.
Well, you're in the right group, so.
There's beer. There's beer so delicious. Sake is amazing. I mean, there's really cool spirits around the world. There's, advocat, which is, there's always this sense of adventure. I mean, there's a milk vodka made in London or in England. So I'm like,
is it newer?
It's not. They've been making it for a while, but it's
I haven't
like
heard of it.
I have to try this now. Advocat's made with eggs. They someone told me one time, and my first thought was I have to try this. I forgot where he was, but he bought a bottle of some spirit that had a dead rat in the bottle. Right? Yeah. It's like forget mezcal and the worm. We're stepping it up.
Yeah.
And my first thought is I have to try this. Yeah.
Did you?
No, he didn't have it with him.
We're all dying to know.
I would have gone for it. So
it's like a labeled beverage or the league. I'm not going to say what it is in the league because it's a little bit disgusting. But was it like a labeled bottle or was it just some dude?
Yeah,
had a bottle
he had
with
a picture. It had a label. It had the rat's just taking
Sleeping.
a forever nap in the bottle.
Embalming,
right.
And speaking of wine, what did you pour us here?
Oh, so this is Graziano Pra. This is the Otto, named after his dog. So it's just Suave Classico, so it is Garganega. This is brought in by Juliana Imports, which is Mark Yeager. I love you, Mark. There you go.
Hi,
now
Mark.
You owe me.
I haven't seen Mark. I met him at Arizona Biltmore.
Oh, he's
he
such a
still
good human.
makes some of the best Bloody Marys I've ever had.
Really? I didn't know that about Mark. I got to try that now. But yeah, there's one of his wines, and it's super accessible and delicious. And I thought it just kind of fit the mood of what we're doing right now.
Yeah, love it.
So this is a very broad question, but how do you pick a wine for whatever instance you're in? What's your kind of thought process?
It's so this is a funny thing. Most people think that like sommeliers pick a wine, and it's like, oh, okay, I have a dartboard in the back, and I just launch a dart at it, and I bring that out. There's a few things you got to consider, right? And it's and this is going to really get personal about something that I observe about people, but I feel like
that.
Right? I feel like silverware really gives you a good idea about a diner and what they're about, right? Because and we're getting ready to change this to be a conversation for later on service, but normally knife on the right, fork on the left, right? Blade facing in. And you can always see how someone responds. If they leave it alone, okay, maybe they're a little more conservative. If they push it off to the side, okay, they're still somewhat rooted in, and it could be a conservative thought or whatever thought, but they're adventurous. If it's strewn all over the place or they leave it kind of everywhere, I'm like, great, I can throw anything at this person.
Now we know all the tricks.
Yeah.
If you want all the things thrown at you,
I'm going to start stacking my silverware.
Seriously.
Right.
Blair
What
Witch
if people
style.
are like playing the drums with their silverware?
Then they have major ADD. I got to have a lot of things to say about it. But I'll take some onus of what they're like if I have a conversation with them, what they're about. One of my favorite phrases to use ever, and for young sommeliers is good, is "Are you feeling adventurous?" Because once you ask someone that, they're like, "Well, yeah, I'm adventurous," and then at that point, I'm like,
and
great.
even if they had a notion ahead of time, that makes them say,
it opens them up,
yeah.
So and I think always discovery is a huge part of dining. It's a huge part of everything. This is why Michelin's successful at rating. This is why. Christina is really great about things because someone's like, I want to discover something new, and I really trust your palate,
and I love to learn. So
yeah.
When you have teachers like this, when you dine out, it's such a gift.
Right. So this is a really good way to like knock those borders down, and they're like, okay, I'll try anything, and it's always a dinner or something else you have where it's something you haven't had and didn't realize how much you love it. That I think that's where you really tap into it. With wine, it's really important also because, humans, you want to share things always. This is why Instagram's so successful. You want to share. You want to put on stories. You want everyone to see what's going on. Sometimes for noble reasons, sometimes for not. But there's always this sense of wanting to share things. And I think wine's really big on that. So once you can do that, you can really knock down borders. Then it's, okay, budget is a big part of it because I don't, shear a sheep many times. You can only skin it once. So you don't want to get aggressive. And then you look at what they're eating, what they're going for, how's the tone, who's the guests are with, what's happening. Then I have, from working with David and seeing his food, I'm like, great. So there's going to be this element. There's the way this is going to be. This balances this way. So then you have a couple stylistic decisions. Do I want the wine to go with it? Do I want to juxtapose? Does the wine need to take the lead on this? Does the food need to take the lead? I just need to clean up the palate in between. Hey, this is a very long-winded way of saying there's
incredible.
a lot.
But it sounds like you guys work together a lot on.
Yeah. Usually, like on the chef's table, I'll ask, like, "Hey, what are you doing with this?" Another one that is very difficult for Psalms, but people love to do it, is pickled elements, which you don't go too crazy. Thank you for
Not
that.
too crazy. Not yet.
Pickled is
Not yet.
like pickled asparagus. I'm like, oh my god, no wine's good with
Yeah.
that. Drink
Tough.
beer. But
Why is that?
it's because pickled is. It's a pretty strong taste. And it's a lot of acid that you're adding to something.
And whatever you drink after you have something pickled is so affected by
It is. It's a very strong, kind of like olives, right? That's why like sherry's really good. Like dry Fino sherry is amazing with olives. You can actually scrape that out of your palate, right? So pickled is a very strong taste. And pickled to me is not good with elements like tannin. It's really not good. I'd put it almost close with like fish oil. Like fish oil and tannin is a couple unforgivable curses I have with food and wine, and tannin and fish oil is one of them. Because it tastes very metallic. So if you've ever gotten like a handful of change out of an old car somewhere.
All the time.
Yeah, exactly, right? What's your first instinct, right? I can't wait to taste these pennies.
Stop doing that.
But that's, and anytime I have a server or someone that'll suggest something really tannic, I'm like, great, come here and I'll get an oyster and I'll get Barolo for him. And they're like, I will never do that again. So there's a couple things like that you don't really do, but I don't know. It's also, there's a lot of freedom you can have with it too, which is fun.
That's what I think is interesting, though, is like you explain that side of it, like the flavor components and all of that, but you led with like the vibe of the people.
Yeah.
I never think about that. I just think it's all science, all like, okay, this goes with this and this, but getting the vibe of the people.
Yeah, and you're really
that's
good.
really cool.
There's wonderful psalms, and some are kind of more studious, or Jason is like
Some
the
are,
party
yeah.
psalm,
Some
is
are.
what I would say.
That's who I want, though. That is who I want.
And
for sure.
I know it's very popular now, but Jason was the first one who taught me the caviar bump. I think it was that
man, caviar bump.
It was the Antica Terra wine dinner.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
I had that was the first one Maggie Harrison had.
Yeah, that's exactly.
That was also the first night she ever shot a champagne gun. First
Yeah,
night she
that was
sabered.
Maple and Ash. We went to a wine dinner. And it was
There was a lot of first that night for
Yeah.
Maggie. She's an incredible human. But I mean, there's a lot of things that go into everything, but ultimately the culmination of anyone coming and dining really is how do they feel?
Sure.
Because at
Absolutely.
the end of anything, you think of the best meal you've ever had. You're never like, oh my God, that pickled asparagus I had was amazing. It's never any details. It's usually just the overall, how did I feel at the end of it? What was the catharsis? What was the feeling? The same way if you got an argument with someone 10 years ago, you might not know the specifics, but you know exactly how they made you feel.
Sure. Right.
So to the chagrin of chefs and psalms and everything else, it's usually not a wine in particular, a dish in particular it had, but how did they feel overall? And that's what's going to stick with them 20 years later. So,
Well, and it's interesting to kind of piggyback off of that. It's like some of my favorite wine tastings I've ever had. It's not necessarily my favorite wine I've ever had, but the way it was thoughtfully paired with something, using often, technical knowledge to make sure it matches, that is almost more important than the wine in and of itself or the dish in and of itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why tasting menus and wine dinners and whatnot are so fun to experience in that manner.
yeah, I agree. So it's kind of a good segue. It's something we're leading to with the service we have here at Jordy's is taking a look at all these things we take for granted, right? Like I mentioned fork and knife on the left, and this is going to force me to rethink that a little bit, but why? It's
when people listen to the podcast and they all come in and scatter their silverware everywhere.
right. I'm like, I quit. I'm
Jenga.
But there's this big thing where you have to place the silverware the same way every time, right? And the problem I have with that is that if you're engaged in conversation, I'm sticking an arm in between your conversation. What, to make sure a knife's on the right every time? How important is that? Is it better to make sure they have silverware first and foremost and where it's accessible versus popping the bubble every time? And because ultimately when someone goes out to eat, if you have 3 other diners with you, Christina, you want to hang out with those 3 people.
Right. And it fits Christopher's because Christopher's, your silverware is in a drawer underneath
right.
your
Yes.
table,
I like
which
that.
is really cool.
Which is really cool, exactly. So it's not obtrusive. It's it's a cool step. But it's there's a lot of weird things you can do with that to make sure people are at ease, and that's the other part of wine. Also, is a big part of it people don't talk about is what was the setting, who were you with, what's
Absolutely.
happening, what was the buildup. It's a bottle of wine is going to taste way better if you have someone you're really into, and it's like the first night where sparks fly and everything. You will always remember that bottle, right?
Absolutely.
Versus and then when you buy it and have it at home, you're like, oh, I'm a little disappointed. It's like, well, you didn't have that tension, you didn't have that feeling.
Right.
Yeah, that's
You know?
true.
Yeah.
That happens at tasting rooms sometimes.
Oh, totally,
You
yeah.
fall in love with the wine, and then you get home and you're like,
Especially if it's second or third one you've been
Yeah.
to.
Oh, yeah.
This is the best place I've ever been. Yeah.
Right.
I want it all.
Well, and I think that's a a thoughtful and kind of a humble approach of thinking about how to serve people. Because, again, to piggyback off of your point, I don't recall the bottle of mezcal that we tried with Chef Duchamp over at Weft and Warp, but I sure remember that moment and sharing it with you guys.
Right.
And to, imagine someone coming in and correcting my silverware might make me feel a little bit foolish in some instances. And that can kind of take you out of that moment. So it's, when you're coming to a place like this, it's, kind of intuitive to come in and know that people are thinking very thoughtfully about how you're experiencing things. But to hear kind of the creative component of it and how you can build it beyond just silverware into the entire dining experience and even your wine selections is pretty interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's there's a lot that goes in. To have a good seamless night, there's going to be a million, and they're weightless details, honestly. Any one individually doesn't mean anything, but all together you get something special.
Absolutely.
David, do you have any favorite dinners you've done or favorite dish that Jason paired some spectacular wine with?
I mean, I just drank
All of
some
them?
65 Barolo that Mark opened
wow.
up. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark, for that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Mark for that one.
I got to have a little bit of sip, but it was delicious. Great wine.
I
Really
bet.
great wine.
Well, it's funny because I don't want to oversimplify you two in general as human beings, but right now you guys are kind of the yin and yang, literally, with the difference in shirt colors. But I kind of get that vibe from you, right?
For sure.
Like Jason, you are very, very lively, and not to say that you aren't. I've not spent too much time with you, but you're kind of cool as a cucumber, right? And I think to see the fusion of you guys, I just get like a good synergy.
Yeah.
What is it like working together to create a menu for a wine dinner?
I think it's fun. I mean, your personality is great. My personality is like more calm and relaxed. So the food kind of goes the same way. I kind of like put up menus, and Jason and I kind of talk about things and how we're gonna approach it and exactly what kind of varietal we're gonna serve that night. So it all goes hand in hand. But I think just being calm with the food and not going so overzealous with certain, especially like with a flight club or I don't want to do artichokes or anything like that. That's going to ruin the experience.
Artichoke pickle salad
Sommeliers everywhere love you.
No artichokes,
with,
no
with a shaved asparagus.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's funny, even with a chef, I'll ask weird questions like, how you feeling today? What's your vibe? What's going on? I don't know. It's, when you try to get an idea, because it's something like that is really cool because you get to really see something put together right then and there. Versus, like the full dinner menu, which is amazing and very thoughtful. But that's something that he can digest and take a while on. When we have a chef's table, it's like, great, I need a menu in half an hour. I need a menu in, a day or whatever it is. And he's able to pump out some really incredible stuff, which is really cool. So that's why you're kind of asking a little more like, well, how you feeling? What's going on? And then you can try to integrate some of that in, which is really fun. So.
Sure. Well, let's get a quick message in and dig back into that because I'm interested to hear more about how you guys work together. So let's take a brief message and we'll jump back in. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com. We were kind of talking in more of like not just like technical, do this, prepare this way, or go down this checklist to create a menu item or a pairing. And it sounded more like, the kids say, you're basing it off the vibes. But I kind of love that because in a place like this, and when you see in movies, kitchens, and I imagine it's how the kitchen is run here, very technical, everything is done to a T, but to hear that creative component still exists and is kind of the guiding force still is something I feel like a lot of people maybe they're not able to see in fine dining. So when he comes to you and says, I need you to build a menu for this, much like how he described picking a wine, how do you come up with a menu? Where do you begin?
For me, it's always like, logistically, like how much money is the guest spending? So we have to be responsible with that aspect. And then whatever seasonal, whatever I'm working on, if we're working on a new dish that wants to hit the menu in about a week or so, we'll use those guests as guinea pigs, especially the chef's table is probably like the best way to approach that. And then we'll put things together. I'll go with my sous chefs. We'll probably source some incredible stuff locally or probably look at things that, like white asparagus right now is in season. And we love having that. And especially like the menu is so new to us. So probably showcasing the menu, whether it's in the chef's table or if we're doing a dinner upstairs, I think it's super important to show people what we're doing currently right now since it's so new to us and new to the guest. So I'll probably piggyback off of certain, dishes that are currently on the menu. But of course, showcasing something a little bit different.
Sure.
And I think you do a lot of traveling R&D,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah, I love going out and seeing what's going on right now around us. Just because they do it doesn't mean we can't do it here in Phoenix. So I want to see what the recent techniques are. Steps of service are very important. Whether it's using a different type of silverware. There's a lot of counter seating around the country that's not a lot of people are doing in the city. So I love seeing that aspect of the service and food, and then figuring out how I can kind of bring that home and do it our way here.
And so we talked earlier about some of the dishes that you're preparing specifically for the Decades dinner, and that's obviously tied to a specific time frame. But in terms of who you are as a chef, is there a specific dish or a few examples of something that you could explain that people might get an idea for what your cooking is like?
In other words, when I come in for dinner, what should I order?
Exactly. Yeah.
I always go back.
Yeah.
You always have to look backwards to kind of know where we're going forward. So I always looking at like classic, like a dish that I did with Alex was like a braised short rib with like a blue cheese gnocchi. Super classic.
Wow.
Tasty, labor intensive. I hated prepping it because I was so young and I didn't really know how to, but yeah, it kicked my ass for sure. But yeah, you look back at those dishes and then kind of hone in on what the inspiration was to them, and then figure out how, the Decades dinner, we're doing riffs on like, the 90s. I'm doing like a Hot Pocket, but a Pithiviers. We're going to get our own Berkshire ham and do like a Comté Mornay. So it'll be like the same riffs on things, duck à la presse, escargot pot pie. So things that are familiar of the era, but then again, with my contemporary kind of take on certain things.
What exactly is a blue cheese gnocchi? Like, how do you make that?
Gnocchi, potato, we'll cook it on like a sheet tray with some salt, dry it out, flour, egg. But the best part of it is a Valdeon blue cheese. It's like really...
It's super creamy.
Yeah,
it's a
pungent,
blue cheese that's really creamy.
but tasty. Yeah,
So it's not
great.
in the gnocchi itself?
No, it's tossed.
Okay.
It's in the sauce, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I want that right now.
Yeah.
What are... so on the property, there's Christopher's, there's Jordy's, there's Jamie's Wine Bar, and then you do the event services as well, right? I'm not missing anything?
Yeah, for the most part, that's the majority of what we are.
Okay, and so are you involved with Christopher's side, or is it more on, inside the mansion itself?
Yeah, Christopher's kind of in his own restaurant, his own creative, and then we kind of are a little bit separate, but we do help each other out, whether we need things or anything like that, for sure.
Who gets the big kitchen?
We do.
The
That's a
biggest
huge
kitchen I've
kitchen.
ever seen.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
the most
what is it,
beautiful
the
kitchen.
Heston?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just gorgeous.
When you walked into that, where you're like, come on.
Yeah, I've seen it before, and I was like, I get to cook on that maybe,
Oh,
potentially.
yeah,
I'm like,
I bet.
Jason and I kind of get along.
There you go. Go for it.
Yeah.
That solves a lot of the problems that you guys had before, huh?
It totally does. And on a side note, what's really cool is, he's really underscoring how good he is of a chef, honestly. The whole, I'm calm and I'm whatever.
I'm trying
else.
to bring it out of him.
I know.
No, I'm going to use the word brilliant. And
Brilliance. Yeah, that's
and not
very
just
understated
because
word.
he's such a young talent and so mature, I feel like, in your cooking philosophy, but I don't want his age to take away from it, because if he was older, it's still amazing. It's not just because he's young. He's really brilliant. I mean, every dish is so thoughtful, and the
I can't wait
details
till
are
he's at
so...
that get off my lawn age with the good stuff he's going to have.
But, I mean, you're going to hear about David for a long, long
Thank
time.
you. Yeah.
And
that's
it's
the goal.
and then when what you all need to do is just come in and watch a service, because it's honestly it's poetic is the best way to look at it. It's a ticket printing out with food on it. Big deal. But then the way it's called out, the way that every other chef is, they're all like, everyone's dialed into it. It's like this beautiful militant like operation undergoing, and you're seeing it happen. It's like watching an artist kind of paint something, honestly, which is like really cool to see.
Yeah.
And then the meticulous detail at at plating, and this isn't here, and I've always said, a lot of chefs are like, oh, a knife's the most important, a tasting spoon. If he was a cooking utensil, he'd be a pair of like tweezers.
I like tweezers.
But you still translate it in a whimsical way.
Sure.
And then I'd like to give a shout out to your pastry chef, Jolie, too, who I'm a big fan of.
She's
But
fantastic.
She's great.
It's the same thing. It's very detail oriented, but still whimsical and fun and
Yeah, it has to be familiar.
inviting.
Accessible. Yeah.
Accessible.
Yeah.
Accessible.
It can't be so far-fetched that you don't know what you're eating.
Right.
I hate when a server spiels a dish and you're like, all right, well, what am I having again?
Right.
Yeah.
It has to be familiar. It has to be tasty, number one.
Well, and to continue the shout out of her, I was in here, I think it was last week, shooting some photos of her pastries for the next issue of A Taste of AZ. And it's some of the most beautiful, it's definitely the most beautiful desserts that I've ever shot, but some of the most beautiful food that I've ever shot. And it doesn't even look like a dessert sometimes in a good way because it's so perfect.
And I met her at Ember. She
Yes.
used to be the pastry chef at Ember at Weekopa.
Well, and it's funny, too, because I shot photos back when she was there, and she had, I don't remember the exact name for them, but they're like dehydrated fruit puree that's in these beautiful, like, stenciled shapes. And when I came back here, she was doing the same thing, but it was pineapple puree this time or whatever it was. And it's just incredible the level of precision, which you kind of come to expect from a place like this. But to me, I'm really kind of captivated between the dichotomy of the creativity and where it meets that technical perfection. So what are some of like the things that you've learned over the years that have helped guide that? Because I remember I was over at Christopher's and he was explaining to one of the people putting the dish out for me how he, gets the perfect water droplets on a piece of like microgreens for photographs. And I was like, I take a lot of photos. I've never seen that level of attention to detail before.
You're like, now I'm going to have to think about that every time.
Well, and it's funny, you say tweezers too. That's like, I feel like for every chef movie, that is like the iconic thing that the head chef is like adjusting things with tweezers. So I figure it's a little bit like that, but what else is it like?
I mean, it's fun to, tweezers, a lot of chefs are like, oh, you play with tweezers, like, that's not real cooking. But like at the end of the day, it's precision. We want to be precise with what we do. I think there's a lot of thought into every single dish. There's sometimes dishes take months to kind of come up with. Sometimes chef's tables are on the fly, so you got to come up with a little bit quicker. But yeah, you got to be precise with putting, even if it's a microgreen or a garnish of any kind, it has to be precise. It has to eat well. The vessel makes sense as well.
And for chefs like David, it's not just decoration. Like the perfect bite is going to be that bite that has all that components in that bite.
Sure. Yeah, and the vessel matters too. That can interfere with the experience itself. Whether it's something that's layered, you want to go in with a spoon and something at the very bottom, you go all the way back up. You have a lot of texture, so the vessel matters. The way you experience it, the temperature of everything is very important. So all those details, you look at them, you kind of digest, and then you kind of figure out how you kind of approach that dish, and then it goes on the menu. But again, precision is very key.
Yeah, well, it's funny because when I do home cooking, which is nothing like what it's like here, even if I just, I like to make a chicken tortilla soup, and I'll take the queso fresco and chop it into tiny little cubes, and people love that. They're like, oh my God, that's the cutest little cheese bits I've ever seen.
It's the details. It's the details. There you go.
Right?
There you go.
The salt there on top of it.
It matters.
I kicked him out in Dallas. That was fun.
Oh, we should hear that story.
We'll get to that in a second. But like the tweezers thing, to go back to it, I like it because not only do you use it then, but he'll chastise someone with the tweezers. Like he points with it. So it's like, he'll make a point with it, and this needs to be done this way,
Grabbing them by the ear and drawing them back over where they messed up. Yeah.
Whapping them on the hand with the tweezers.
So we haven't really dug too much into the concepts on the property themselves. So what is a dinner service like at Jordy's? What can people expect, not only in terms of what they'll be eating, but how the dinner progresses?
So the idea behind Jordy's, so we have, both major restaurants and everything else. Jordy's is supposed to be more like an engaging dinner party. And not in simplicity, not in anything else. It's still very elevated in everything that's happening. But there's that level of comfort and that level of enjoying who you're with, right? It's
you can eat at the bar too, right? The full menu?
Yes, yeah, you can. You can do full bar there. You can do it in Jamie's also. But everyone's always had that feeling where, you get invited to, to a dinner party somewhere, someone's, rich house somewhere, or McCormick Ranch or whatever it is, right? And you kind of drive up and you're like, wow, this is really cool. And you go in and there's a chef cooking everything and everyone's very, prim and there's good wine and everything. And it's sure, it can feel sometimes off-putting and we want to get rid of all that. But that anticipatory feeling that you have when you're going to this really nice, whether it's a dinner party, whether it's some event, some whatever else, we want to really encapsulate that feeling of kind of anticipation, excitement, and discovery is really big what we're trying to go for over there. So whether it's the candles, the music, the way everyone kind of meanders around the dining room and everything else, it's supposed to be very comforting, but also allowing you to accept everything new that we're bringing to you. So it's pretty well thought out, but it shouldn't feel like it is the idea. And a lot of people say that it feels pretty effortless and it feels nice. And one of my own personal things I can't stand is when you can hear the clanking of silverware at another table. So some people say like the music's a little loud, and it's like, well, I shouldn't say oldsters, but some of the people say that it's a little loud, right? But that's by design, because there's no better feeling when you're out. Like, I was just in France for, 10 days, right? And there's something about sitting, in a brasserie and seeing everyone go by, and you're kind of hiding in plain sight, which is nice. So everyone else is there, and it all serves a purpose as to what they're doing. But it's nice, it's refreshing, it's fun. You're able to observe, and that's kind of.
Is that where you were at Guy Savoy? As I saw your picture.
Yeah. Oh man, that guy is he is firing on all cylinders. What an incredible experience. But that's kind of what's going on there. And then Christopher's is very intentional, deliberate, classic French dining. It's 40 perfect covers a night.
We should mention James Beard Award winner.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he was one of the first chefs, and I think in the modern day and the younger kids, you said oldster, so I'll say younger kids.
Oh wow.
They don't. I think they don't.
Slide that by.
Yeah.
Nothing's allowed
I
to
think
go
they
by.
don't realize that heritage that Christopher Gross is, and what a
yeah.
legacy he is.
He's fantastic. He's super talented. He's always willing to to talk, and here's Bloviate. We'll use Bloviate. I'm kidding. He's always
And I
willing
like
to,
that he's a little crazy like you, brilliant, crazy, whimsical. And, you keep using the word discovery, and I think that's always been, Jamie's like that too, about presenting this place, even though it's so grand and historic, but it's fun at
She's
the same
such
time.
a fantastic. There's no better person I could think of to work for in this regard.
We're big fans.
Yeah, she's very trusting. She wants everything to be amazing, and she'll put her money where her mouth is, and like, this is what I want. This is everything, and she's super happy about it, and it's been really fun, to do that. So, hopefully, future James Beard,
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
I really have no doubt about that.
Well, and to add another note about Jamie, she's obviously not on the podcast today, but she was with us on a podcast, the first one we did here, and I've interacted with her several times. And, this place in general, you could imagine it as pretentious and, not very approachable, but it has never been like that for me. And speaking with her, and I think she went through it a bit on the last podcast, so check that out, but she explains that, the membership, for example, for those who don't know, you have to pay for a membership here. That's just
only because it's zoned that way, not
exactly.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's $5. It's $20 a year.
yeah.
It's not.
And it includes free valet. I mean, that alone here in anywhere
Exactly.
is.
Wow, look at this, my new membership director. I love
Yeah, I'm gonna help
Marketing.
out.
I know. She's
And then
killing
if
it.
you do the wine membership, you get how much off every bottle of
it's
wine?
15 to 20 depending on the bottle.
And even that's what, $100 a year or something? It's not-
75.
75.
So,
and then you get
uh,
a discount off of wine and free valet.
Right, and then we'll see how it is. But there's a plan, I think, for Jamie's bottle shop. I might be saying a little too much already. So I think the wine membership will tie in with that, which is really nice. So it'll be utilized.
Are we saying
over there.
hand curated wines by
Sure.
yours
we
truly?
hand curated. That sounds so deliberate. I love it. Like I'm an archaeologist.
Like you're in there choosing the bottles for everybody.
It must feel like that sometimes, though, being down in that old historic wine cellar and having access to some of the things that you have access to.
Yeah, it's pretty special. It's something that not a lot of people get to do. It's 1.6 million in wine. It's we have some of those.
Yeah.
Just right. Well, I mean, if I had my druthers, it'll be more. But
5 million.
At some point, I need to have some restraint. But it's almost 15,000 bottles. There's 2,100 selections down there. So it's.
Do you have a recent wine acquisition that you're so excited about?
There is some Gentas d'Herveux, which was super cool to get a hold of.
Not that any of us know what that is.
Right. So that
I know.
right.
I was just playing it cool. I figured I was the only one.
Got some of that too.
Right.
Yeah, cool.
So that's Maria Gentas. So it's a property that's actually not in existence anymore. The last vintage was 1993. If you ever had the wines of Rennie Rostang, that's his son-in-law. So he inherited all the vineyards and everything else. But it was, damn near one of the greatest Côte Rôties ever made. So it's super hard to find. And I have 2 bottles of 86 and 2 bottles of 90
Wow.
that I was able to secure, through the gray market and everything else and get it in. So having that is that's really cool because up until I'd been here and I actually found it and it was pricey, but it's like a unicorn. You hear of it. I'd never seen a bottle in person. So when I saw it, I'm sitting there just cradling it.
I was going to say, did you?
And I think Devin, who's my assistant, wine director, she's like, "Can I put that on the damn shelf already?" And I'm like, no, I need more time.
Oh, yeah, we love Devin. I forgot Devin's
Devin's
here.
phenomenal. Devin and Mark. Mark has been really good.
Yeah.
So do you wait for somebody to ask for that? Or do you you fit it into the budget mixed with what they want. You know,
I mean,
how do you-
that one's like 9,000. So I don't.
Yeah,
That's
like how do you what do you?
Well, sure. I mean, it's one of those things that if the timing's right, someone's ready for something, it's absolutely something that you want to share. But I mean, aside from the fact of cost, it's not just cost, because there's a lot of really expensive stuff you can get if you're just looking to simply part someone from their wallet. You can do that.
Right, but somebody who knows the history.
Yeah, or even if they
realizes
don't know the
how
history.
hard it is to
like
find.
if they know cote roti and they have an extra 9,000 they don't care about. Just kidding.
I know a couple actually. I'll connect you. Yeah.
But it's one of those ones that it's cool because I'll never be able to replace those bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
once I sell those, like that's it.
I bet you'll
So-
be a little pained once they're
Will.
not
It's
in
like,
your
yeah,
in the
it's
cellar
like,
anymore.
It's like watching my son.
I was gonna
go
say
off
he
to
goes
college.
down every
It's
day
like,
and looks at them.
You're gonna go do great things. Dad's proud of me. So
There might be security footage of some man that is exactly your height, dressed in all black, sneaking into the wine cellar and getting that bottle.
well, if we're gonna do it, let's open it here.
Yeah. I feel like they would know it's you just by the bottles that you would select if you did do a heist of wine.
Probably.
Here.
Yeah. You probably fist pumping on the camera. And like,
Yeah, jumping up and down.
Montenegro.
right. God, I love Montenegro. Let's just get that out of the way.
Times that's been brought up. Yeah.
Love Montenegro.
What do you love about it?
First I love, so digestif, right? So it's when you drink it, it sounds kind of weird when you describe it to people, because first you're like, oh, it aids in digestion. They're like, oh, it's going to make me shit. And it's like, well, no, it's, I mean, eventually, but no, but it's,
All
it
good
just,
things lead to
yeah. But it's like, it's kind of cool. So it has a bitterness to it, because it's all the herbs and everything else, around the distillery. They're taking it. It elicits a kind of poison response in the body. So it'll literally kind of free up the stomach, to make sure that it can contend with whatever's in there.
And it's a little sweeter than like Fernet or some of the more bitter
Yes.
ones. So people,
Okay.
it's more approachable to people.
You know what? If before we go, we'll have some.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Actually, I need a picture of you with Monty Knuckles, so you're not on the hook yet, Christina. So, but yeah, it's just and it's a nice way to cap off the meal, which is really fun. So.
Do you have a favorite digestivo that you like?
Probably Montenegro,
Yep.
honestly.
Right.
Yeah. We have it.
We don't drink any of that here.
Yeah.
It seems like that's been has that always been a huge industry, the digestives? Like, cause
I think among the hospitality industry, because it's been like a welcome, because it can be an aperitivo also.
Yeah,
But also at
I
the
drink
end
it
of the
always.
night, I think people tend to. I mean, there was a time when it was all Fernet.
Yes.
Like
Yeah,
I remember.
Fernet.
San Francisco was big on everything.
Citizen Public House or
Yeah, Citizens,
CPH
yeah.
drank a lot
So
of.
they had the
Fernet
molecular
back
up top, which is really cool back when too.
Yeah, that was a short-lived, brilliant place.
It was brilliant though, And then there was actually Peter Kaspersky had a place called Digestif, which is way ahead of its time.
And that was when I moved here. So that's where I met Peyton Curry. And,
Oh, nice.
And that's also where I met Pavle.
Oh,
He was
Pavle.
the manager at Digestif.
Did he have hair then, or was he always? I love you, Pavle. I'm just kidding.
We love Pavle. Iconic in the industry, but yeah, he was a manager
He's a
at
fucking legend.
Digestif.
Let's call it how it is. That's amazing.
Has anybody been to his winery? The tasting
I
room?
haven't.
What
Yeah,
is
I haven't
it?
had time.
Stunning. The winery is stunning. It's by two architects on
the
Cheng.
name of it's stunning, or you?
Yes, that's the
It
name
is.
of it. No, it's Los Milich, which is his last
okay.
name.
Yeah.
But if anybody ever gets down south, it's
He's like
Is it
he's-
yes.
That's
Well,
what I thought.
Elgin, but Sonata
Okay.
AVA. So
But even more so, his hospitality is unmatched.
Yes.
He's kind of like the Bobby Stuckey of Arizona. I don't know if that's hopefully nothing against anyone else, but
no, he is.
he makes you feel so comfortable and so good about everything.
So
and he's just-
welcome.
yes, he's incredible.
Dear lady. I like
Right.
when he welcomes the women. It's dear lady.
He always calls me Meester. He's like,
Yeah, Mister, sit down here. Yeah.
So, Jason has been hogging the mic a little bit over here, David. I want to circle back. So, talking about Jordy's menu, what are some of the things on there that you may had some vision? I don't know exactly how much you touched that menu since you've been here, but describe the food side of that a little bit more and what's unique about it.
I really wanted to complement the mansion and like the space and the way it looks, and also complement Christopher's. So I went a little bit more modern European, a little French in there, obviously with my background. So we did, like a salad lyonnaise, kind of a new take on it with like duck confit. We do like a nice roulade of it and sear it and glaze it in duck choux. So it's a new interpretation of a classic salad. We're also showcasing asparagus with like a bone marrow sabayon out of an ISI canister, so it's super light and fluffy. So it's very seasonal.
Okay, who's hungry?
Yeah, it's super tasty stuff. And then we're also doing, like a heritage chicken. We'll brine it in Dijon for about a day, and then air dry it so it's super crispy skin. Take the legs, confit it, and then put it in an agnolotti. So you have it two ways. So it's kind of that same technique of like an old school French restaurant where it's like showing multiple ways of highlighting a bird or some kind of beef cut, and then in a new way, whether it's plate up or purees or whatever it is, so just to kind of showcase a little contemporary.
Do you still have the spam cubano on the menu?
No, spam will return.
Do you do lunch? You don't do
coming
lunch
back.
right now, right?
What's
I know
that?
you did
No,
lunch
we
at
don't.
one point.
No.
Do you think you'll ever bring it back, or not? There wasn't a lot of people who did lunch.
Yeah, it was.
I've had some quite long, fun lunches here,
Yeah.
so I do miss that experience.
Yeah, I love the dinner only. That's my jam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because then you're not spending
Yeah.
all day at the
We're looking,
restaurant.
we're looking at potentially a late night something or other. For
Oh yeah, I
industry.
think, and
Oh, nice.
Yeah, something where they can get really killer bottles of wine and really cool food. I've been trying to convince David to make. I'm a huge Korean fried chicken and Riesling person. It's one of the best things. That's
ooh,
good.
filed
So,
away for
that is
pairing.
right.
Yeah,
so I'm
for
trying to get
sure.
him to mess around with
What
that
would
a
you
little.
pair with his salad lyonnaise?
Oh man, it's honestly
salad
champagne
lyonnaise,
with it.
actually.
It's just so lively and and brilliant. And the dish, honestly, you just need to clean everything up. It's so brilliant on its own. So
Yeah, tasty.
Yeah, that roulade sounds amazing too.
Yeah.
You have to come in.
Yes, I know. I haven't been for dinner
Have you
since
not
David
eaten his
joined the
menu
team.
yet?
No.
the menu, the menu is 100% new.
Every week I keep trying
Yeah.
to come in, and then, like right now, I'm into June trying to find some extra days. But
What
one of
are
these
some-
days,
When you find a day.
Yeah. I'm in. I'll go with you.
Please.
Yeah.
We need to rent a Taste of AZ party bus and I'll come on.
that's right.
Done.
Drive up the hill. Yeah.
And then you will subsidize the $9,000 bottle of wine, right?
Tax
it.
deductible.
As long as
There it
Jason's
You get to taste it too.
Jason's
Thank you.
invited, right?
Yeah, Montenegro at the end.
Yeah, we'll give you a bunch of Montenegro. on the
We're
bus.
definitely going to need to rent a party bus if we're going in that direction.
Yeah, this might happen in like 2 hours from now. Honestly,
Yeah,
the way we're going. Yeah.
We're ready.
Surprise, surprise. I've already got one booked. Everyone. Well, let's get a quick break in and then we'll kind of start wrapping this up. I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com. What else should people know about this property? And I know that's kind of a hard question to answer because there is so much going on.
I think one of the important things is, it's not necessary for you to have a membership. We can get you dialed in right then and there. I mean, we don't want to exclude anybody. We want to share this, this beautiful place with everyone. And those are the big things. Jamie really wants to share it. She wants to be accessible. That's why she's invested so much in the wine list. That's, why David's here, why everyone's here. It's for you to come up and just, have the most amazing time you could. So I don't know, more than anything, it's that. I'd love everyone to come up the hill and come visit, please.
And I love how each space has a different feel. Like you have a patio that has those beautiful high tops. You have the dining room. The bar is super casual. And then Jamie's, which I love.
Yeah.
And I always remember when she was telling me how the pops of color in there, that blue is her favorite color. So I always feel like it really is Jamie's wine bar in there.
It is. It's fun.
But so you can go on a date. You can, bring the in-laws. You can celebrate something. You can meet people after work.
As a chef's table, you could start in the cellar. We're going to do something. We have like a bridal suite. So if people want to start with champagne and everyone else in there and go to dinner, they can do that. We have Christopher's whole experience. It's the cellar they can go visit. We leave it open where everyone can go walk around and see everything. So it's, that's why everything I feel is kind of unique. I mean, we're in this breakfast room, which is the old breakfast nook of William Wrigley. So, I mean, he got to live here a year. He built it, and then in 32 he actually died upstairs. But he was able to enjoy this, but this is actually where he was, Mr. Cubs, Mr. Wrigley's Gum, everything was in this room we're at right now, like directing traffic on this empire and everything else. And this is where he was, which is pretty cool, to think about things like that. So,
well, it's pretty incredible the way that you guys have been able to capture those components, but also refresh the experience because it feels old, but in a good way. It feels new, but in a good way. And the way that the renovations were done here and bringing you guys in and seeing what you're doing, it's like a breath of fresh air to a place that is so historic that it could have just sat up on this hill and nothing cool ever really happened to it. And it's now become kind of the perfect encapsulation of the historical significance of the Phoenix area in general, as well as what is going on through you guys and everyone else on the team that is new in Arizona food and beverage. It's pretty incredible if you think about, when this place was built, how there was like nothing around here.
Yeah.
And then you see it now, and you can see it in downtown Phoenix, which is like one of the food meccas of Arizona. And you guys can see a lot of it from where you're perched up on this hill. So it's a very unique location and an absolute must visit, even if you're just going to come for a tour.
And I know when I've told
well done.
people about it, I know. Add him to the paycheck.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
I should buy
welcome
you
that.
dinner
Oh,
for
well,
that.
I don't hear it as much, but when I first started coming here, people would say, who were, had lived here forever, said, "Oh, I haven't been since my prom." And I think people are starting to realize this is not just a venue place.
Yes.
Because it's striking.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is a destination for dining, wine. Your craft cocktails are excellent too.
Yeah,
And then the staff, you can get a little taste of how knowledgeable everybody is.
I think between you two and Jolie and everyone else, it feels like you guys are really stepping into a new generation of the Wrigley Mansion and kind of opening it up to, I don't want to say a more youthful approach, but you kind of, joked about that a little bit earlier. It feels like, more energy is being put in here.
There is,
And that's exciting because you can really sense it talking to you guys and just seeing the way things are starting to play out.
Yeah, it's been really fun because it's the way I kind of equated it when I started is I felt like this place was Syrah. For people that don't know, Syrah is like everyone's favorite grape, but no one orders it in a restaurant. So I felt like that. They're like, "Oh, the Wrigley Mansion, I love it there." And it's like, "Oh, when's the last time you were there?" I was like, "Oh, 10 years ago."
Sure. Yeah.
So it is really cool that people are starting to come visit now and starting to see it, and there's a little bit of a buzz, which is fun. So. Thank you,
And it's-
David, for that. I'm going to give you all the credit for that. Thanks, buddy.
It's a great
No,
team
it
up
was
here.
very
No.
exciting news to hear.
Yeah.
when
No, we have a
David
great
joined the
team. I think Mark being a part of the team.
Yeah,
he
Mark
has a lot of
Guido.
experience. Great guy. So it's a collective for sure.
Well,
I was going to say, so you talk about it being grand, and it is, but you can tell it's run by people. Right?
Yes.
It's got personality. It's not just like, wow, this is really cool, and if you saw like a room of robots in the background and you're like, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Here,
a room of robots.
just,
I love a room of robots.
I call that next beer name, Room of Robots. But you, right? You in?
Oh, I'll buy it. We'll have it here.
But no, you can tell this is why they bought this place, right? Like Jordy and Jamie bought it, right? And it was there's personality to this. Like you said, the guy was in here, Mr. Wrigley, I don't remember his first name, but he was in here having
Yeah, he
breakfast,
was in here.
looking out the window. Like just like this feels different.
Yeah,
Really
and
does.
it's kind of cool because when Jamie and Jordy bought it, it was actually getting slated to be demolished.
That's right. Yeah.
So they saved this place from just being knocked down, and who knows, apartments or who knows, something
Yeah.
unexciting.
Yeah, that would have been a tragedy.
Yeah, whole 19 for the Biltmore. How cool up here, But it's nice that they were able to save it and actually.
And
turn
it was
into
not
something.
easy.
No,
I had a few. I've had a few tours, especially when Christopher, before he even put in Christopher's. So to see just the layout and where the chefs used to
Yeah.
have to walk to the kitchen.
Oh
and
man,
Wow.
yeah, it was in a hallway in the back while the kitchen was being redone, and then now, you get all the benefit
I
from
know.
that. David.
I see pictures and I'm like, oh man, I don't know.
You get to cook on a Ferrari every
tough.
day. So.
It's a Rolls Royce in there.
He's got a Segway that takes him around the restaurant.
I would pay
Shot
money to
photos.
see Christopher on a Segway.
having shot photos here a few times, it feels like it's like a whole logistical planning session just to figure out how to get my cart of gear from one end of the place to the other.
That's true.
Or like
Yeah.
when I was shooting Jolie the other day, having to you go through Christopher's and then down some steps, and they've got her tucked in the back there. I don't know what she did to belong back there, but it's funny because I'm bringing my flash through Christopher's and trying to avoid hitting what is probably like a $10,000 bottle of whiskey or something like that, and they're prepping some crazy food. And if you just walk around this property, you walk through the big kitchen, past the wine cellar, and all the different areas, the amount of action taking place, and it's in so many different pieces that all come together in this beautiful property that was slated to be demolished. It's quite incredible, and it
Yeah.
really, like, until you walk through all those different weird rooms and have to duck your head in some areas and stuff like that, you really don't get the feel for how historic this place is.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom.
You nailed it, dude.
Again,
Oh, cherry on top. That's
Well,
it.
see,
He's hired.
I thought the most
right?
eloquent thing was the ending it on a wine analogy, but we've gone a little bit past there. So
The wine analogy
just
was good, yeah.
reminding people that you have quite an analogy locked up with that. The Syrah grape is what this place is. So
yeah, we'll remember
come
that
in,
one.
order a glass of Syrah, have some of Chef's wonderful food, and get a tour. And yeah, you definitely have to make a visit up here if you haven't in a while or never have before, because it's a one-of-a-kind property.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Gentlemen,
you.
thank you so much
No,
for sitting
appreciate
down
it.
with us. Christina, thanks for joining as always.
Thank
And
you,
the
and
final-
time for
Such a treat
Montenegro.
seeing you. Yeah, Montenegro. Down in the
So
south.
it's next time.
Yes.
There we
yes.
go. Yeah.
I told my wife, pick me up on Wednesday. So
That's early.
There are a few rooms you can stay
Yeah,
in.
we got you dialed in. Don't worry.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, gentlemen. We can't wait to be back.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, the Somm Journal. When it comes to wine education, the Somm Journal is the leading print publication in the nation. They provide a behind-the-scenes look at who's who and who's drinking what. It's read by decision makers at restaurants and retail wine shops. So if you want to learn alongside the experts, send your subscription request to subscriptions@sommjournal.com. That's SOMM journal.com.